Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 12th Masterclass of the India Forum for Nature-Based Solutions Masterclass series. I'm Shaura and I support the Secretariat of the Forum. Today's session is titled Nature-Based Solutions for Urban River Rejuvenation, a case study of the Arkavathy River Basin. Through this session, we will explore how nature-based solutions can play a transformative role in restoring degraded river systems, enhancing biodiversity, and strengthening urban resilience. For those who are joining us for the first time, a quick background on the forum. The India Forum for Nature-Based Solutions was launched on 29th June 2022 at the 11th World Urban Forum. It is a coalition of research, practice, and finance organizations working together to scale up the adoption of NbS for shaping climate resilient cities and communities across India. So, since its launch, the forum has been actively working on several fronts, such as building a shared language and awareness around NbS, documenting and sharing evidence from Indian cities, and also supporting policy discussions and integration at national and state levels. Through knowledge exchanges like this masterclass series, we aim to share actionable strategies and insights that support practitioners, policymakers, and researchers in implementing NBS on the ground. Um, the forum is a collaborative initiative, and its strength lies in the diversity of expertise among our partners. So they bring not only networks and on ground experience, but also strategic guidance. Our partners play a key role in shaping the forum's direction through the work of the steering committee, while also advancing the objective of its task forces on knowledge capacity and policy, as well as on funding and financing. Um, this brings us to today's masterclass. Our focus today is on the Arkavathy River Basin, which has been facing multiple pressures of catchment degradation, untreated sewage, invasive weeds, and urbanization. We will look at interventions such as deweeding, desilting, and sapling plantations that have been used to rejuvenate the river and its wetlands. Beyond ecology, the Arkavathy example also highlights the role of community engagement and outreach in raising awareness on biodiversity and threats to river systems. Dr. Amit Dubey will take us deeper into these interventions, but our aim today is to understand how nature-based solutions can be applied to urban rivers and what lessons can be drawn for scaling similar approaches across Indian cities. We are very pleased to have with us today Dr. Amit Dubey, who serves as the head of wetlands at WWF-India. Amit has over 25 years of experience in wetland conservation. He has led the preparation of integrated management plans for key wetlands in the country, implementation of wetland restoration projects, and facilitated the declaration of new Ramsar sites. As WWF India is a core partner of the forum, Amit also contributes actively to the knowledge capacity and policy building efforts of the India Forum for Nature-Based Solutions. Before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping notes. We will have a dedicated Q&A segment following the presentation, so please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A box throughout the session. This session is being recorded and will be made available on YouTube, so a link will also be shared with all registered participants via email. With that, let's dive into the presentation, and I'd like to hand over to Dr. Dubey to take us into the details of the Arkavathy case study. Thank you.
Thanks, Javier. Uh, Good afternoon, good evening to everyone present. First, you to share the presentation and the slides. Thanks, Javier. Okay, next slide, please. So, as Javier just introduced, today I'm going to speak on one of the interventions which we did to climate proof to build the resilience of local communities in the upper Arkansas Basin. I'm a part of a very vibrant team at WWF India. So WWF India World for Nature was established as a charitable trust in 1969. The mission is to stop degradation of planet's natural environment, and we want to build a future which is safe for humans, which is safe for nature, and both humans and nature live in harmony and not go against each other. Our primary goal is to conserve biological diversity, We also try to ensure that the use of renewable natural resources is sustainable, and we also promote the reduction of pollution and wasteful consumption. I represent a team called Rivers and Wetlands, and I head Wetlands division in WWF-India. So the initiative that I'm going to talk about today is one of the most ambitious initiatives that WWF for wetlands and river rejuvenation in Arkavathy. Next slide, please. So this is the definition of NbS, but I would briefly like to tell you that any action that is taken, which is ecosystem based, which uses nature's healing capacity, uh, address an environmental issue, is something that is considered as an area-based solution. So this is what we have been able to do in this complex case, which involved issues like pollution, which involved loss of hydrological connectivity. So most of the solutions that we used were nature-based, ecosystem-based approaches for conservation and restoration of wetlands in the Arkavathy Basin. Uh, Next slide, if you can, please. So this initiative was a part of an HSBC WWF India Climate Solution Partnership, which looked at a broader geography. So there were two major geographies which were undertaken under this project. One was the Indian part, the Sundarbans Delta, and was in Karnataka, in Arkavathy Basin, which included the Bangalore city, which is in the Bangalore urban district, Dubey town, which is a small industrial in the peri-urban areas of Bangalore, and the rural areas surrounds the upper reaches of Arkavathy Basin. Uh, Very, very vital area, especially because it supports a lot of biodiversity. It's the headwaters of river, so it supports water security to the local communities, also for the through map and explain which area I'm talking about. What we see in this photograph are the five hills, the Panchgis, as they are called in Bangalore, and the one second hill that you see is the Nandi Hills, which is the origin of River Arkavathy. Next slide, please. This is the project area. If you see, uh, the project is located in Bangalore, which is the capital city of Karnataka. And this Arkavathy River is that we for trying out the NbS actions is actually a tributary of River Kaveri, which is very, very important river in South India. Survives the needs of water and other sectors to the state of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So it's a very, very important river. And this is also a very, very important tributary Arkavathy, which originates from Nandi Hills, which is 60 kilometers north of Bangalore, and joins Kaveri 90 kilometers south of Bangalore. Area of the Arkavathy River is 4,150 square kilometers, and one third of that is that of Bangalore City. Uh, Around 8,000 of households, agricultural practices, and other ecosystem services are dependent on Arkavathy and small little tributaries that contribute to Arkavathy. Now, this Arkavathy has been dammed places. Around 700 years ago, the first dam was constructed, and they got constructed almost 800 years ago. So, bondage dam has created wetlands on the main stem as well as the support channels. Little ponds, these little irrigation ponds, were the key to water security that region. the river drains into a major reservoir called Hespergetta Reservoir. And this Hespergetta Reservoir, almost 20-25 years back, was key to the drinking water supply to Bangalore city. Around 20-25% of the total population of Bangalore used to depend on the water from this particular reservoir. So this is basic uh, s- uh, description of project area. Next, please. So when we started working in this basin, we thought of seeing as to what ecological functions that the river and the associated wetlands were playing. And we found that the river and the associated wetlands are a huge area of ecosystem services that were provided. The most important set of services were the hydrological regulation, where this river maintained water flow from the upstream areas, that is in the hills. So it used to collect all the water through precipitation. The precipitation here is around 1100 mm. Substantial amount of water uh, is brought in with the rainfall, and that cascades through this cascade of lands and the river. And this is critical for maintaining the hydrological balance of the area. These wetlands, when the water stagnates, are also important sources for groundwater in the area, which now is one of the principal sources of drinking water supply, industrial water supply, and water for irrigation purposes in this area. And in instances which are rapidly increasing the impacts of climate change, uh, you know, high intensity rainfall events are becoming very common in Bangalore. These wetlands in this river acts as a cushion against such climatic events. Talk about biodiversity, the entire area is very rich in biodiversity. In fact, Nandi Hills is the origin of this river, is one of the biodiversity hotspots. And the wetlands that are there are also a hotspot of both, the residential as well as migratory species of birds and other faunal species. Other than these two key critical ecosystem services, nutrient recycling, water purification, climate regulation, support to agriculture and livelihood, and cultural and ecological values is something that this river system and associated wetlands used to provide. But there was a severe loss, severe degradation in these ecological functions because of a number of threats that the basin, the river, and the wetlands were facing when we started working in this area. Next slide, please. So if we talk about threats, this area that we undertook is a mix of urban, peri-urban, rural, and some part of forest area. So this is a schematic diagram, an illustration of what the basin looks like. So when the basin starts from the top, the river is pristine, doesn't have any issues in terms of quality or quantity. But as soon as it hits the ground, what happens? The plains. What happens is it encounters the first set of villages where intensive agriculture, chemical intensive agriculture is taking place. The land use and land cover pattern in this part of the country, which is very close to a mega city like Bangalore, is changing on a very, very brisk pace. The areas which were once fallow land is rapidly being converted into agricultural areas, and the agricultural areas are rapidly being converted into residential areas. So small little villages are becoming larger towns, and the waste generation over there is increasing with increase in population density in these areas. So because of all these factors, almost two-thirds of the sewage that is dumped in our and most of the sewage that's generated in this area, unfortunately, is dumped into the Arkavathy River, is untreated due to the limited capacity of the STPs that exist over there. As I said, the area is still a peri-urban area, So the infrastructure development is not able to keep pace with the development of the population pressure that is there in that area. And that is why there is always a deficit between the generation of waste and the waste treatment facilities. And that is why the untreated sewage is flowing through what used to be natural drains at one point in time, but they have become now the carriers of wastewater into the river and into the wetlands. Needless to say, that is actually bringing down the water quality of both the river and the wetland. The second most important factor that has actually impacted both the quality and quantity of water in the basin is the cultivation of exotic and water-thirsty crops. This area is slowly becoming a hub for vineyards. So the crop uses a lot of pesticides and also, a water grazing crop. So all the water in this area is being now utilized, now being pumped into agriculture sector. Uh, there's a standing order in this part of the country that the surface waters cannot be used for irrigation purposes because most of the times the surface waters are running dry. So the agriculture practices here are largely dependent on the use of groundwater. And because of excessive draw of groundwater, the water table has gone really down. And because the surface water is so limited, the recharge to this groundwater is also hindered. The wetlands are being silted up because of constant abuse. So the only recharge potential that used to be there in the basin were also fast degrading when we started working. So chemical intensive agriculture and sewage that is flowing through the rivers into the wetlands had made them actually a recipient of wastewater rather than fresh water. And this actually caused a lot of weed outgrowth, which in fact impacted the local biodiversity. So weeds like water hyacinth, weed like alligator weed, typha, etc., they proliferated in the wetlands in very large numbers, and that impacted the natural flora, which in turn impacted the natural fauna. So the biodiversity that was once supported by these wetlands were also lost because of these practices in the catchment area and as well as in the basin. So the wetlands that were there were heavily infested by the weeds. Other than that, the aquatic weeds coupled with excessive siltation had reduced the water carrying capacity of the wetlands and had also choked the river channels and the independent catchment channels, which once used to bring in fresh water. So during the rains, what used to happen was that because the water was not flowing into the river, it used to flood the areas which are now the agriculture fields or the residential areas. So during the monsoon period, the entire area was flooded, while during the summers, there were acute water crises in this area. So these were some of the major that we encountered. We did understand the threats, but we wanted to do a basin scan to understand how severe these threats were. Based on that, only we could prepare a mitigation strategy. So we did an entire basin scan through some of the studies. Sorry, if you can change the slide, please. So when we started on for this project, we did a basin scan. We wanted to understand what basin is going through, what are the critical threats, how critical they are, what are the extent of threat. And then based on that, we prepared the restoration plan for the basin. And the studies that we did with different stakeholders, with different agencies that were experts in their respective fields. The first study that we did was to understand what are the future climate projections for the entire basin. And what we learned from this study was that the extreme rainfall events are going to increase. The intensity of rainfall is also going to increase. And unfortunately, because of the loss of wetlands and the loss of connectivity, there was no place to store this water. And if this was the case, the the instances of flooding would also have increased. So that was one study that informed that this area is prone to frequent flooding in coming years. We also did an assessment of agriculture, how agriculture will be impacted because of the changes in climate change, because the upper reaches of Arkavathy Basin were dominated by agriculture as an activity. So this was the largest sector which will be impacted because of climate change. And we wanted to build strategies for building the resilience of these communities. So we wanted to understand what kind of changes, what kind of impacts to expect in the upper basins. The third study that we did was how these wetlands and the rivers were connected earlier, how the connectivity were lost, and what are the hotspots of these connectivity losses. So we wanted to understand how the hydrology is playing its role right now, and how it used to be in a virgin state. Then we also did hydrogeological study because a lot of water that the basin is now using is through groundwater, and most of our interventions we knew in the beginning were to be focused on enhancing and augmenting the water availability. So we a lot of hydrogeology on that basin and identify potential hotspots for India. The town, as I said, industrial town, and learned the survey that other than domestic industrial influence from some industries was also into a series of wetlands in the mainstream of our country. And when we started looking into that, and we carried out a study to do cluster profiling and the option of clean tech in some of the dying units that were there in the catchment, releasing their effluents into the and into the wetland system. Then we also studied the carbon sequestration potential of these wetlands because that builds a very, very strong case for conservation and protection of these wetlands, which are otherwise highly neglected systems because they had apparent no use to the local communities over there. We also did thorough documentation of all the 41 wetlands that were present in the Arkavathy Basin as per the requirements of National Plan for Conservation of Aquatic Resources. So we did wetland health assessments, the first ever for these wetlands. We did biodiversity assessments, we did water quality assessment to develop baselines on the ecological status of all these 44 wetlands that were there in the Arkavathy Basin. We also carried out, so Nagarkere is one of the wetlands, and I'll take you through what interventions we did in Nagarkere. But this Nagarkere wetland is one of the most important wetland in this cascade, uh, a particularly larger one, and the one that is being used to the maximum by the developer town because it isn't right in the middle of the town. We and this was a recipient of both liquid and salt base. So we carried out a study specifically to develop a waste mitigation plan for Nagarkiri wetland. Next slide, please.
Hi, Amit. Sorry to interrupt. I think your voice is a little patchy. If you could turn off your video, that would be better, I feel.
Uh, I'll do. Sure, I'll do that. Thanks. Is it any? Sorry, no?
Sorry?
Is it better? Is it better now?
Yeah, yeah, it's better now. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. So next slide, please. So based on the baseline studies, what we were able to do was to zoom in into the areas for intervention. We identified the areas which had the maximum charge potential. We zoomed in areas which were the most and based on that, we selected wetlands and patches of rivers, of river and the connecting channels which were highly degraded. And the area that is marked in blue were the areas where we actually did our maximum intervention. Next slide, please. We talk about the impact on the major restoration activities which we undertook. So we identified around 25 kilometers of river channels. This included both the main stem arteries. If you look at this map over here, the two channels that you're seeing up north, uh, they are both the two stems of Arkavathy, which joins just before a wetland in Shivpura. And beyond that, this is River Arkavathy. And right at the bottom is down south. The pondage that you see is the Hasagata Reservoir referring to. So in this initial 35-kilometer stretch of river Arkavathy, this is from Coimbatore to Hasargada, this is a stretch of 35 kilometers. We identified that 25 kilometers of the stretch was actually degraded. A lot of silt had actually accumulated. The river channel had actually shrunken because of siltation. There were certain barriers which are also encroached upon by the local farmers. They were using the land for cultivation practices because the river had only remained seasonal, ephemeral to be best. So what we did was we identified through geospatial analysis and stakeholder consultations the original flow path of the river, because at many of the places, the original path of the river was not visible on the ground. The river had actually disappeared completely. What we did to initiate all these things was to form a multi-stakeholder, because this is a shared resource that we were working in, which had a lot of stakeholders, the Gram Panchayat, the district administration, the local community members, the industries, even the airport authority. All these were stakeholders to this area. So we convened a multi-stakeholder reform under of the district collector, who is the administrative head of the district. So under his chairmanship, we formed a multi-departmental committee and a multi-stakeholder committee. The multi-departmental committee had representations of all the key and line departments, line government departments, which were responsible for carrying out the activities, while the multi-stakeholder committee had a representation from panchayats, local community members, and the different stakeholder groups that the wetlands, the river, and the catchment. So then what we were able to do was to identify, the areas of degradation, and we actually did physical excavation of 25 kilometer stretch. We, designed it in such a way that the original width and the original of the river channels were maintained so as to facilitate the uninterrupted flow of water through the river channel to the wetlands and so on. Some of the wetlands, especially Nagarkere, was heavily infested with weeds because of the water quality degradation. So while we did deweed the, we also ensured that the weeding is sustainable. And we did was we in situ water quality improvement measure, and these were also nature-based solutions. Installed two solar-powered floating fountains to enhance the water quality, and for management of the nutrients that were flowing in, we installed 10 artificial floating islands with macrophytic vegetation to absorb the excess nutrients that is in the wetland. Uh, we also did management, and we also did desilting of the wetlands, and we were able to remove 2,500 tons of weeds which were removed. And these weeds, aquatic weeds, were then used after composting in the agricultural fields and implant areas of Dodbalapur. Uh, the policy I mentions involved development of waste management plans for many urban wetlands. It included six wetlands which were recipient of wastewater in the form of sewage or in the form of industrial effluents for the solid waste as well. So we developed a robust waste management plan, which was submitted to the district administration. Now the district administration is taking action based on the plan that we had submitted. And now we are developing, based on our understanding of the entire basin, we are developing the basin management plan for Arkavathy in lines some of the major rivers like Ganga. So Ganga has first river basin management plan. And on the similar lines, we are developing basin level management plan for river Arkavathy with the help of the multi-stakeholder committee that were formed. Next slide, please. So, what were some of the issues and what were the NbS solutions that we employed is something that I'm going to discuss in these slides and would also discuss what were the outcomes of this. So these were some of the problems that we were dealing with. Loss in biodiversity, poor health of land, reduced water holding capacity, loss of hydrological connectivity, encroachment and pollution, resulting in spread of invasive species, and poor water quality was something that we were dealing with. The NbS solutions that we adopted to tackle some of these was we carried out selective desilting and deweeding, which improved the overall ecological health of the and the region. What we were able to achieve through selective deweeding was one, we were able to demonstrate that the weeded material could actually be used for compost and could replace the chemical fertilizers in the agricultural plants. The silt was also used in the farmland because this was rich in organic matter, rich in total organic carbon, and that also proved to be a very good soil conditioner. So that was a way of demonstrating as to how the silt which is flowing from upper areas could actually be utilized for productive purposes. Uh, we also strengthened the bonds of the lakes, and we were able to restore through these activities 350 hectares of wetland area in Kannada. We installed fountains, two floating fountains, and when we were installing that, one of the major concerns of the administrative authority was who takes care of the electrical bill once the project has pulled out. So that's when we decided to try out solar energy to power fountains. I'm not sure if this was tried anywhere else in the country, but we did try this, and this has been running fairly well since last almost a year and a half. So we were able to do that, and we also did an efficacy study, and we found that these floating fountains were actually able to improve the water quality by increasing the oxygen concentration almost by 20-25% and reducing the VOD load by almost 30%. So these floating fountains have been fairly effective in improving the water quality. We also carried out afforestation in the catchment area, and the afforestation was done with dual purpose. One was, of course, to increase the vegetal cover and provide a roosting, nesting place for the local flora, local fauna. But also, one of the purposes was to arrest the silt that was flowing from the catchment into the channels and into the wetlands. So that has resulted in improved water holding capacity of the wetland and has actually resulted in the as well as waste management practices and sustainable agricultural practices. While we did not have a direct intervention, we did not limit that. But a lot of policy advocacy went into this, and that has resulted into improved groundwater level in the area, and the biodiversity has also because of the limitation, some of the uh, that we provide through skills. And it's like-
Hi, I'm sorry, your voice is a little patchy still. Would it be possible to connect to a different network if possible, or
let's
is it okay?
use I know that. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. I'm doing Yeah, sure. Is it any better now?
Yeah, it looks better. Currently, yes. Let me shift to the next slide.
Yeah, I've changed the network and I've also the network. So important components was also the community engagement. So for us, the sustainability of the efforts that we put in light in the engagement of the local community. So had to be a blind from the community. So what we thought. And what we did was we enrolled the local communities, students in the local colleges and schools as the friends of wetland or wetland midras, as Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in India wants to call them. So there is a wetland mitra program embedded in the wetland program of the country. And we enrolled these wetland mitras and provided them trainings on assessment of and health, on conservation activities related to wetlands, biodiversity surveys, that they became the guardian of the wetlands during the project period, and they have actually overtaken once the project was over. So now they are the people, they are the cadre that is taking care of these wetlands. And to engage the kids into wetland conservation, because these are the future. We had a water school program, and this community engagement component, we were able to increase the climate resilience of 88,000, and we are to engage with more than full events in Arkavathy Basin. We engage with more than 20,000 students through water school program. And these local community members are still our champions. They're keeping conservation and restoration activity, which we carried out at this project, still sustained. The efforts are still sustained. So I will take you through a photo journey of some of the interventions. This is not an exhaustive list. Some of the key takeaways from the project we were able to achieve is something that through in the next slide. So if you look at the major highlight, Nagar Ray, as I said, was one of the most important wetlands where we intervene. If you look at the major issues of this wetland, there was sewage and industrial flow from the Dubey town. Was invasive weed infestation. The catchment was degraded. There was flow from sewage inlets, but there was very little flow from the upstream catchment. So reduced freshwater inflow was something that was that this wetland was facing. What we was we did baseline studies, geohydrology, hydrology, climate predictions, etc. We engaged with the stakeholders, and if you look at the on-ground interventions, we did selective deweeding over here. There was a lot of weed. In fact, the entire area was covered with weeds like water hyacinth and alligator weed. We installed two solar-powered floating fountains and 10 floating islands to improve the water quality. And we are carrying out the regular water quality monitoring with stakeholder participation. In addition to this, we also carried out the connectivity restoration works, because this is mainstem Arkavathy, and all the restoration work that we did on Arkavathy had a direct impact on the water inflow into this wetland and the wetland systems downstream of this particular wetland. As a result, what happened it was that the wetland health score, which was zero point 0.4, improved to 0.5, 0.9 being highest achievable score. So we were able to improve the health score. The invasive cover was reduced. The wetland area, which used to be almost 80% covered with invasive, is now only 10% of that area has now got back again, which has periodically been removed. Port was reduced through floating islands. And I would like to show all the pictures. So, Shoya, if you do the next slide, please. So this the picture of the wetland before we intervene, and this is the picture of the wetland after intervention. So immediately after the deweeding, this is what it looked like. Next slide, Shoya, please. So this is the picture of on the left hand side, what you see is the floating island, and we installed it. If you notice, there is a water hyacinth close to this, and this is because there is a lot of nutrient flowing through a sewage inlet into this part of the wetland. So through installation of these floating islands, uh, we have actually ensured that most of the nutrient that is coming through this particular sewage inlet is taken up by the aquatic macrophytes. This is a picture of the floating fountain on the right hand side. It's totally 100% being run by solar panels. If you can move to the next slide, Shaurya. Yeah, so these are the solar panels that installed to power the floating islands. The interesting thing was that in this entire area, there was only one temple, which was a building, and the temple authorities were kind enough to provide us with an area to install and also to secure, these solar panels, because this is an unguarded, open aquatic system that's there. So we wanted to ensure that the security for the investment that we are putting in, and the temple authorities came together and they actually helped us install and secure the entire infrastructure that is now running the floating fountains. Next slide, please. The next important wetland that we took for conservation and restoration here was Kodihalli. Same kind of issues, sewage and industrial inflow, invasive weeds, and catchment area degradation. What we did was we carried out deweeding. We removed the invasive plants from there, regular monitoring. We improved the health of the channels. So instead of having in-situ water quality improvement measures, what we did was to enhance flow. So Kodihalli is just upstream of the wetland that I mentioned. It is not really in the heart of the Purdown. It is just upstream. So the water quality issues were not that intensive. So we managed the water quality issues through increasing the flows of fresh water. So whole lot of catchment area treatment, catchment area improvement was carried out through selective desilting of the river channels that used to feed this wetland. We were able to improve wetland health score through this. We were able to reduce the invasive cover that has actually helped the biodiversity to flourish. And we have improved the water quality with increase in DO and decrease in BOD concentration. Next slide, please. So this is the aerial photograph of the Kodihalli wetland. And what you see here is a wetland which is heavily infested, especially around the peripheries of the wetland. Next slide, please. Wetland immediate after deweeding and the first shower. So if you see, the water spread area of the wetland has also increased because we were able to work on the water inflow channels. So the amount of water spread area also increased in the water. This used to be a seasonal wetland, used to dry up in summers, but the water during this season has sustained throughout the summer. Some amount of water is still present in this wetland, even during the harshest of the summers of Bangalore. Next slide, please. So this was the major river restoration work which we took. So the area between, so this is the main stem Arkavathy, if you see, between Tripura and Galkire. And the two channels, which were the most important tributaries of Arkavathy, were heavily silted up. There was loss of connectivity. You will see that at some places, the channel was completely lost in the agricultural fields. You could not even see physically if there was water channel or not. So Tripura Nagarkere, this stretch of 7 kilometers was the most highly degraded for a reason that this is the area with the maximum density of human population. And the connectivity loss and the obstruction in the river flow resulted in very frequent flooding of the farmlands. So we started talking to people. They were also happy that if we were to intervene through this, the frequent flooding in their farmlands would also be light. So they were also happy to join hands with us, and they provided with all the support that was required. What we did as a solution was to prepare the detailed rejuvenation plan. And since this involved all the key stakeholders, we had to get a sign off from everybody, and we did manage to get a sign off from every single individual that was a stakeholder of this entire area. We renaturalized the streams through connectivity restoration. We identified the hotspots where the silt deposit was maximum, where the width had reduced, and we brought it back to its original shape and slope through tilting, sharp clearance, deweeding, and slope maintenance. The outcome of that was that we restored the connectivity between these two major wetlands, Shivpura and Nagarkere, and in turn benefited River Arkavati, which has resulted in enhanced flow into the river further downstream of these wetlands. The work that we carried out had ecological gains and hydrological gains around the entire 35-kilometer. So even the Hesarghatta reservoir received more water as compared to the last few years. And that actually improved ecological conditions both in and that has impacted biodiversity also. So we were able to species of birds uh, walking into the land and into the river systems of the area was recorded particular year as compared to years. Okay. So that if you picture, if you see this is an aerial photograph, you don't see what you see here is just agriculture field. There is hardly a water channel that is. Next slide, please. So what we did was through US speaking to the community members and also checking the cadastral records, we were able to identify the check and this was uh, uh, the force research was showing which did not exist when we started work. Next slide, please. This is a river channel. So we actually certain the width of the channel and we maintain the slope. We carried out these excavations the river channel, and we were able to achieve if you can move to the next slide, please. This is another example. The river channel, like working, we were growing in this week. If you can move to the next slide, Shaurya. This is a demarcated channel. This is what the course of the channel should have been like. Okay. This is what it's like, the complete activity. So we identified the hotspots of degradation like this in the entire 25 kilometers stretch where we worked, and we were able to clear the and able to maintain the slow water flow was facilitated. Uh, in channel all very glad but we it was we the some invasive weeds, and this is what the river would take after we completed the excavation, completed the restoration. Next, please. So this is these are some of the pictures which are showing the kind of work that we did. If you can skip this, go to the next slide. As I said, we had the deputy commissioner who was the head of all the engagements of all the stakeholders. We had periodic meetings to update all the project activities, take feedback, and take that feedback back onto the ground and implement according to the feedback. So this multi-stakeholder multi-departmental committee helped us, guided us to implement this project to the success that we were able to achieve. Move to the next slide, please. These are some of the field assessments that we carried, and the local community members, the stakeholders, were also a part of some of these assessments. So we carried out waste management plan for two important wetlands in the region, in the basin. Please. We also engaged the local community members in biodiversity surveys. Trained the local members, the school children that you see on the right side, in biodiversity assessments. And now, once we pulled out of that area, these students and these local community members are still generating the data on biodiversity, especially the avian fauna. Avian fauna surveys that are still being carried out in this area, which provides vital statistics about the health of the entire basin. Next slide, please. These are some of the pictures, the other programs that we carried out in various across.
Unable to hear you, Amit.
I don't know. Is it better now? Okay.
Yeah, it seems better now, yellow.
By any chance, is it better?
Yes, it's better now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So this is a picture of of engagement of college students and school students. A lot of awareness programs, awareness events was organized the important significance of wetlands was explained. Water footprint and how you reduce the water was explained. And all these students actually vouched to become the friends of the wetlands and reduce footprints. And that actually had a basin level impact by reduction in the direct indirect water footprint. Sharia, if you can move to the next slide, please. So this brings me to the end of the presentation. Happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amit, for that very engaging presentation. What really stands out from the Arkavathy experience is not just the immediate interventions, but the way the work has evolved, experimenting with innovations like solar-powered floating fountains, and also creating space for students and communities to take direct ownership of the wetlands. So, now moving on to the Q&A section of the masterclass. There are some questions in chat. Um, to start with, this is about just floating wetlands. How effective were floating fountains, and was it regularly used? And were they hooked with the land or just left to move freely on the water surface?
Okay, so there are three parts to this question as I can understand. So first coming to the floating islands and floating wetlands, both of them are actually anchored to a suspended weight. So they are, while they are floating, free to move if they want, but we can take them to a place, designated place, after de-anchoring them and then moving them. So they are anchored at a designated place, both the floating mountains and flowing islands. We did an efficacy assessment for the efficiency. We did an efficacy assessment, and floating islands were found to remove 35 to 40% of the phosphorus load and reduce through oxygenation almost 50% of nitrate load on the uh, from the water to an area of influence of was 10 feet into 6 feet. That was the dimension of one floating island. The area, the zone of influence was around 10 meters across all the corners of this floating island. Floating fountains, if you talk about, the efficacy was measured by two parameters. One is the increase in dissolved oxygen, and second one was the decrease in PO concentrations. So, almost 25 to 30% increase in PO concentrations and 25 to in VOD loads at different levels recorded. So, it's an average value of concentration that was the zone of influence. Although this divert from different depths, there is a vertical as well as a horizontal zone of influence of working for floating fountain. The horizontal area to talk about, so an area of almost 50 meters from the floating fountain was found to be heavily by these floating fountains, and the entire water column, which was around 6 meters, an increase in oxygen concentration was observed. To answer the last part of the question, the floating islands, you don't really have to operate. They are still in place in the wetland, and they are, the aquatic macrophytes are naturally over there. Periodic pruning is to be done, like the size of the plants. Other than that, there is no maintenance required. The fountains are being run even now every day, 2 hours during the dawn and 2 hours during the dusk. That is the operation that is happening. I hope I was able to answer all the parts of
Yeah,
the question.
yeah. Thank you, Amit. For the second question,
Thanks.
focus on the silting part. Is the silt reused anywhere after desilting the water bodies, and what's done with the silt?
So I think I did mention that in my presentation, the silt was removed, was given because this was rich in organic matter and the nutrients brought in one through the through the catchment with rich in chemical intensive farming. So this was given away free of cost to the interested farmers. This was spread across the agricultural fields, and that actually acted as a very good soil condition because the TOC concentrations, the total organic concentrations in the soil was very high. So this was a very good soil conditioner. So we use that in the agriculture.
Sure. For the next question, what was the timeline for of this restoration project, and after completion, how was the project handed over? Like, was it handed over to the municipality or any ULB?
Right. So basically, the time frame of this project was 3 years, and the project got completed in March 2025. The assets were handed over to respective agencies, so not one single agency, because the wetland managers of different wetlands are very, very different. In some wetlands, the wetland managers are the Gram Panchayat. So the assets that we created was handed over to the Gram Panchayat. In the urban areas, assets were handed over to the municipal council, and one of the wetlands was under the ownership of minor irrigation department. So the assets are handed over to minor irrigation department. But what is still joining all these wetlands is the multi-departmental and multi-stakeholder committee, which is still active. So it has engagement of all the important line departments. So there's still an integration. It's not that wetlands now for working in silos. They're still working in an integrated manner, where the committee is meeting regularly every quarter under the chairmanship of the EC and taking the actions for maintenance of these assets.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. For the next question, you had also mentioned about improved groundwater quality. So, is there any groundwater level or quality monitoring? And if yes, what was the frequency for that?
Right. So we have ground record across all our catchment. So we used these augment groundwater uh, to monitor and as the local community members. So they are recorded. So there has been a recorded improvement in the water table. So it's not the water quality that has improved, but the water table has actually improved. So around 5 to 7 feet of water table rise has been recorded in the different areas. So it's a very vast catchment. So the rise in the water table in some areas have been around 5 to 7 feet recorded in the catchment.
Sure. We also have
And yes,
another.
periodical monitoring, constantly monsoon. Sorry, I just forgot to answer the second
Yeah,
question. The monitoring is pre and pre.
I think we'll just take up one more question because I think we are over time, Amit. And for the rest of the questions, would be great if we can send it out to you, Amit, and you could share your responses, and we can email out to our participants.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for the last question, could you
Yeah.
clarify how you have validated that the observed positive impacts, such as the increased stream flow, are due to their intervention and not also a result of higher rainfall in the past few years?
So we have actually carried out, so we have compared the amount of rainfall that has been taking place. So we've had close monitoring of the IM data. And when we started working, we had rain gauges installed in the entire catchment. So we've been monitoring the rainfall patterns in the entire catchment. And based on that, we were able to compare the amount of water that could be attributed to these interventions. So these are early days. I mean, we are not claiming that we have actually sort of, rejuvenated or restored the entire basin, because this has been water for almost 30-35 years. And it will take multiple years once the interventions are put in place for the system to become saturated of water, and then actually result in enhanced flows. But yes, what we have seen is an observed increase in the periodicity of the water availability in the wetland, and your periodicity and the flows of water that is flowing into the main Arkavathy. There has been some increase, substantial. I wouldn't call it substantial, but yes, some amount of increase has been observed, which was not there in the previous years.
Got it. Also, just wanted to understand if there is any report of the entire case study that we can also share with the participants. Anything that is documented, the learnings for the entire process that you've shared.
We have a microsite, Shaurya, on WWF-India's website, which talks about the entire intervention in detail. So we can actually share the link of that microsite, which talks about the entire intervention in its complete totality. So we can do that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, sounds good. Let me just close it with the Mentimeter that we have for the masterclass. So thank you again, everyone, for submitting those responses. We will be reaching out to Amit with the questions that have not been answered and hoping to take those up and send it out through the email. So before we wrap up, please, we'd really value your quick feedback through this interactive Mentimeter poll. This will actually help us shape our and improve our upcoming master classes. Please, it would only take a minute or two. You can scan the QR code available on the screen, and also would request Amit to share any final takeaway for cities that are looking to apply these approaches to their own contexts from the learnings of the Arkavathy.
Thanks, Shaurya. So our key takeaway from implementation of this project is that, the nature-based solutions are something which are highly sustainable, but would only be successful if we ensure that the local communities that are dependent on the aquatic resources, or the resource, in fact, that we are trying to improve, are a part of the decision-making process. So the sustainability of these efforts are something which are ensured only by engaging all the key stakeholders into the conservation action. So I think multi-stakeholder approach is the key to success of any project, and the NbS projects that are there, it becomes even more important. So, and thanks everyone for
Completely.
your patient hearing.
Completely agree with that, Amit. And thank you again for joining us today. And we look forward to building on today's insights and working together to scale NBS across our cities. And on that note, we'll just close this session for today. Have a great evening. And we look forward to seeing you at the next masterclass. Thank you.